Gentlemen, come on and have a seat. Let's go.
All right, it looks like we have almost everyone here. We're gonna get started. We have 2 speeches. I have one quick thing before we get started. As you can see, the stage has been built out. That's for the musical this spring. Tickets are on sale, gilman.edu/box office. I think that's what it is. You can buy them online. They're on sale for all of our performances. They're going quickly. It's better if you can buy them online. You can do it in person too. Talk to Mr. Flint or Ms. Fuller. All right, so I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Guline.
Please welcome today's first senior speaker, Jed Roman.
Before I begin, I would like to give a shout out to my dad, who's currently watching this speech at 1 a.m. in Afghanistan. Thanks for being over there, so I have the luxury of standing here and addressing you all today. So here I am, second semester of my senior year, a time of deep reflection for me and my fellow students in the 2019 class. In this time, I have reflected on events and attitudes that have made my Gilman experience what it has been. And after months of deep thought and introspection, I have something to admit. I'm guilty. Guilty of what author Dorothy Sayers would describe as a fall into illusion, one that turns virtues into vices. For me, this disillusionment was created around one value that Gilman holds so dear: excellence. I've always fooled myself into believing that excellence was in a class of its own at Gilman, that excellence was possible without our other 4 values of honor, integrity, respect, and humility, and instead existed independent of those virtues. And I assume I'm not alone in this line of thought. Countless people have stood on this stage, stood at this very podium, and told all of us that the value of excellence at Gilman embodies a pressure to succeed. Whether it's about being successful in the classroom, on the athletic field, or in life beyond Gilman, many here feel that excellence as an idea is a negative, something that brings out the very worst in people. Some have even said that maybe excellence doesn't even belong here at all, and should be replaced with something less centered around competition. But is it possible that we have it all wrong? Maybe the problem is not with excellence as an idea, but instead the problem is with us and our ability to corrupt ideas away from their originally intended meaning. Maybe excellence isn't about competition between people, but instead something more meaningful and deeper than that, which is why I'm standing up here today, to show that I and many others are wrong about this 10-letter word that is painted on every single one of our walls. For the rest of my time, I just want to make my case for excellence. For me, excellence was always focused on an outcome. That was the easiest misconception for me to always make, focusing on the end goal of what I wanted to accomplish. In short, excellence was synonymous with success. Now, this isn't to say that trying to get a certain result out of a set of events is bad. In fact, people succeeding in some senses makes the world go around. But this isn't what excellence is defined by, and often we at Gilman miss that point. Throughout my time here, there's been pressure to get into certain colleges, get certain grades and SAT scores, take certain difficulty of classes, all while being watched and mentored by alumni who are some of the most successful people we have ever met, setting an even greater bar to reach outside of these walls. And while these things are great for us to shoot for, we often measure our excellence and extension, our value as people, based on how we achieve the goals we have set for ourselves. As my dad would often say, we too often let the results of the game define us. Often, I found myself stuck, locked in a prison of my own expectations, dealing with a radical misinterpretation of what it means to be excellent. So imagine this: a smaller, chubbier, less athletic, and admittedly less sophisticated version of me, rocking a sexy off-center mohawk and two embarrassingly large buck teeth that would put Timmy Turner to shame. And essentially, you have what I looked like before middle school. But those extremely good looks aside, each week I would sit at my kitchen table studying for my weekly tests in various subjects. And after around 30 minutes of feeding the dumpster fire that fourth grade me considered studying, which essentially boiled down to me staring at my worksheets from that week like this, trying to figure out any meaning and decipher what our teacher decided we should learn that week, I would proudly approach my mother, and the conversation would go a little something like this. So you done studying for your test, Jed? Yup. So that means you're going to get a 100, right? This would be about the time where I'd falter at my answer, only to be told to go back and study some more, because obviously, if I couldn't produce an instantaneous yes, then I wasn't confident in the outcome that was expected of me. So I continued to study at my table, silently cursing my parents for expecting perfection on a test when I was so young. Often, I would go into those same tests with a greater sense of pressure because now there was a bar set at perfection. Very rarely did I ever go home living up to the expectation that was put on me, and I often was angry at the fact that the fraction at the top of my paper never simplified to 1. In my 7th grade year, over time, the expectation of perfection didn't change, but the person who required it did. My parents stopped asking for perfect results on tests, but by that point, it was already hardwired in my head to come to expect it of myself. When I entered Gilman in my 7th grade year, that word on the wall, excellence, served as a confirmation that my toxic pursuit of perfection was institutionally justified, and it stalked me wherever I went. This was most evident in my athletics, more importantly, the lacrosse field. For those unfamiliar, the MIAA Conference is the biggest, baddest, most brutal top-to-bottom lacrosse league in the entire world. And when I stepped on the field for my first varsity tryout as a freshman, I realized that I really wasn't in Pennsylvania anymore. And in short, I got exposed. All my flaws as a player coming into full view as others beat me down in every aspect of the game. And I came out of it with a bad taste in my mouth. But I thought I'd weathered the worst of it. They were all older than me, after all. But boy, was I wrong. The rest of that season went just as, if not worse. No matter how I did, what I did that season, the ball simply never went in the back of the net. And I even joked that I was cursed because I spectacularly finished with a total of 0 points in a 10-game season. But with that freshman season seared in my mind, I got to work. I told myself never again was I going to embarrass myself like that. Never again was I going to be a weak link on a team. Never again would I miss an open shot, miss a feed to a teammate, be stripped by a defender. I decided that I wanted to be better. No, not much better. I wanted to be perfect. In my mind now, I only had 3 seasons to have a fulfilling high school lacrosse career, one that required perfection. So I worked at it, day in and day out. I skipped study hall. I didn't do homework. Sorry, Mom. I stayed up late looking at film, all in the name of becoming the perfect player. And I got better, much better, but not as much as I wanted to. I was still disgracing that word on the wall. My mother would always try and tell me to be my best, but I never wanted to be my best. I wanted to be the best. My brother, Jake, would say that I chased perfection and excellence followed because I kept getting better and better, but I would refuse to see it. In my mind, the climb to the top of the mountain was just as tall as when I started. In short, my drive for excellence and by extension perfection became more important than the game itself. Instead of being amped on game days and having to spend practices with my teammates every day, I kept telling myself not to squander any opportunity that would present itself to me. Every shot needed to fall, every matchup won, every pass, dodge, change of direction, ground ball needed to be razor sharp. And often, I would come out of the locker room at the end of practices and games, either wearing a fake smile or simply hanging my head in shame and not living up to the standards I had set for myself. Because to me, like many others, the idea of excellence was binary. We are or we aren't. And for me, the idea of excellence has always been linked to superseding everybody else and achieving something, or in the extreme cases, perfection. Under those criteria, my situation on the lacrosse field for these past few years were simply not living up to the idea of excellence. I'm nowhere near the standard of perfection that I set for myself consistently, nor have I ever come close to being the best player on a team. And so by all definitions, I've deemed my lacrosse career at Gilman not excellent. But if that's all that excellence means, why does the school covet excellence at all? If excellence is a binary based on if we reach our goals that inherently limits ourselves from becoming who we want to be, we would lower our goals to avoid failure or just forgo them entirely. We are so focused on the end goal that we overvalue what we reach in the end while making the process to get there irrelevant. But maybe excellence is more nuanced in this dual-channel system we have locked ourselves into. Instead, I would propose that excellence is defined by the following statement, that anything worth doing is worth doing correctly. No, not well, like I and many others have believed for most of our lives. Saying something is done well applies subjectivity to an outcome, while correctly incorporates objectivity to the process. Now, what does doing something correctly necessarily entail? Well, I can't speak to anything specifically, but here are some examples. Going to the writing center for help on our papers, running out shots in lacrosse, getting our pad level lower, touching every line when Coach Matthews decides to introduce our team to Susie, reaching out to friends when they need us, following through on your jump shot, and overall, making sure everything is technically sound to do them in the correct way. In short, excellence is embodied by all the hustle plays, as Mr. Christian would call them, that take no talent or inherent ability, but by us choosing to, as my dad would say, control our controllables, our effort and attitude. Once we have decided or we can determine, the results are no longer in our hands. So in all honesty, there's no use worrying about it. It is out of our control, and regardless, even things done correctly may not have the results we intend. Sometimes our shots don't fall, no matter how well we set them up, because good effort and attitude do not automatically beget good results. That's just life. So we need to learn to be able to love the process and effort and attitude that goes into everything we do instead of fixating ourselves on our end goals. So Mr. Smythe, Mr. Hubeck, faculty, staff, students, mom, dad, JJ, Jake, we can control two things in life, our effort and our attitude. Chase perfection in these two areas and let the results take care of themselves. It doesn't matter that our shots don't fall. What does is that we keep shooting. And take pride that each shot is better than the last, regardless if we miss over and over again. Only then can we liberate ourselves from a prison of our own expectations so that we can be free to pursue excellence in its highest good, and excellence that Gilman can be proud of. Thanks.
Thank you, Jed. Anyone in the back, you guys can come in quietly. We can start with some faculty announcements. Mr. Smith.
All seniors, make sure you come down. After this, we need to talk about
faculty. Dr. Mao.
Guys, this Wednesday evening, the Parents Club is sponsoring a film called Angst and a discussion about teenage anxiety. And the reception has been so great to this that we're going to be in Centennial Hall. We're now moving over to Roland Parks Theater. So if this is something you've dealt with, which is everyone here, anxiety, or something you'd like to learn a little bit more about, would encourage you to come out to Roland Park on Wednesday evening. Again, this is a parent discussion about teenage anxiety, so it would be great to have some teenagers there. So again, if your parents invite you, please say yes. If you feel like you owe me a favor, please stop by. If you just want to hear what parents are saying behind your back, it'll be a great evening at Roland Park, 6:30. Film Angst and a discussion on teenage anxiety. Thanks.
Other faculty.
Glee Club, we're in a Glee Club room today, not on stage.
Any students? Is that Finn?
So if anybody missed the It's Academic thing that we filmed back in February, you can find out how we did there this Saturday. They're going to be airing that, I think Saturday at 10 a.m. Maybe you can check that out.
Ely?
So gentlemen, track and field will have the Woodward Relays at Georgetown Prep on Saturday. We got first place for the second year in a row.
Others? Is that Grant? Yeah.
Quinn mentioned musical early looking for ushers, so if anyone was interested in doing that, it's a good way to help out and get to the show for free. So you can just send me an email or text.
That was Grant Emery, if you want to send him an email. Others? All right. Morrison.
Please welcome our second senior speaker today, Lucas Yim.
Good morning. During my time here at Gilman, I've learned countless lessons, some more important than others, like how much homework I can realistically do between first and second period, which is more than you think, and how much sleep I really need to get without feeling like death the next day, also more than you think. But today, I want to share a lesson that's a bit more important to me. Entering the upper school as a freshman, I had one goal: to do everything that I could to get into a great college, which in my mind meant an Ivy League or another top 10 school. Maybe some of you think the same way or have thought the same way. Unfortunately for me, this goal soon became an all-consuming obsession and began to take up nearly every facet of my life. Everything from the activities I participated in to how hard I tried in school was for this purpose. For most people, the college application process starts the summer of your junior year. But for me, it felt like it started as soon as I entered. I started systematically checking off boxes. Music, violin, string ensemble, check. Sports, tennis, check. Leadership, yearbook, check. Community service, bridges, check, etc. I wasn't happy. I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do. But instead, I figured that 4 years was a short enough time to grind it out. Fast forward a few years, and it was the day before my 18th birthday. And I had a bunch of emails from colleges ready to open, because that day was the day I received almost all of my decisions. And, like at all good birthday parties, my mom and my sister wanted to be present when I opened my gifts. Certainly, out of 12 applications, at least one would bring good news, right? I opened them up one by one, hoping for an early birthday present. But slowly, my anticipation turned into despair. My mother and sister responded to every note I read with phrases like, "Oh," and "Okay, maybe the next one will be better," which slowly got quieter as I opened more and more emails. Instead of an early birthday gift, it felt like a kick in the face. Including my safeties, I got into one college, and I was devastated. But While my family was around me, I tried to hold it together. And after 3 minutes of awkward silence, I excused myself to my own room and closed the door. Here, I sat at my desk as I thought about the reality of the situation. Over the past 4 years, my friends and my family had been giving me encouragement, but it felt like all that build-up and hard work paid off with nothing but sadness and disappointment. I had played the college admissions game. I checked all of their boxes. I made it my life. And now, it felt like I had lost completely. Instead of a day of celebration, my 18th birthday became a day of reflection as I tried to figure out what I would do next. Even now, it hurts thinking about it. But I've come to realize that the way I approached this entire situation was horribly wrong. Instead of doing what I thought that colleges would like, I should have done what I actually wanted to do, which would have made my high school experience completely different and altogether more enjoyable. Thinking back, there are tons of things I would have done differently. Firstly, instead of double languaging, which I honestly I hated, I would have taken more science courses, a subject that I actually enjoy, rather than what I felt like I had to continue to do to appear a well-rounded student. Secondly, instead of tennis, which I was probably better at, although still mediocre at best, just ask anyone on the team, I would have played baseball or lacrosse, which I actually enjoyed, despite looking like an absolute and utter unathletic piece of trash. I would have spent more time with my friends and family instead of stressing and staying up until 3 a.m. studying over getting an extra 2 or 3% on tests. In short, I would have done more of what I wanted to and less of what I felt like I was supposed to. Faculty, staff, Mr. Smythe, Mr. Hubeck, sorry, but this speech wasn't for you. Underclassmen, I can't tell you guys what to do. Some of you guys may play the game and win, and some of you will play it and lose. But I can tell you this, regret hurts. Make your choices with more thought than I did. Do with that what you will. Seniors, in a few months, you'll be starting fresh at a new place with new faces, new friends, and new everything. This is a chance for you to start over. So before you dive into your pre-professional life, consider what you really want to do. After I wrote this, the sentiment of the speech was summed up pretty well in the poem our speaker, Mr. Andrew Brooks, read, called The Man in the Glass. Starting from the second stanza, it reads, "For it isn't your father, or mother, or wife, whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you, clear to the end. And you've passed your most difficult, dangerous test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass. Regretfully, I feel like these past 4 years, I've cheated that man. And so, I've decided that I'm not going to college next year. I just don't believe that I'm ready. Instead, I'll be taking a year off trying to learn how to be a real person rather than an applicant and trying to befriend this man in the glass. Thank you.